Our amendment, Amendment 1035, forms a commission on the adequacy, reliability, and distribution of unrestricted government aid, known as UGGA. And across Massachusetts, communities are at a breaking point. Cities and towns are struggling to balance budgets, forcing overrides and difficult cuts to essential services our residents rely on. In the past 2 years, there's been over 130 overrides in cities and towns across Massachusetts, and you've seen it in the headlines about Proposition 2.5, or in your own community, where local leaders are asking voters to approve tax increases just to maintain basic services. And one major driver of this crisis, or a contributor at the very least, is the way the state calculates and distributes local aid. Municipal budgets rely on three main revenue sources: property taxes, local fines and fees, and state aid. And UGGA is the form that functions as the most flexible form, a no strings attached fund from the state to cities and towns where they can put it to where they most need it, to public safety, to libraries, fire departments, road maintenance, to where they need it the most. But the formula that distributes UGGA is fundamentally broken. And in fact, there actually is no formula at all. The original structure was created 30 years ago, reflecting economic and demographic conditions that no longer exist here in Massachusetts. And then that outdated formula was frozen in 2011. And since then, annual increases have been based upon what the municipality received the previous year instead of actual need. And so the results are quite predictable. Communities that look very similar on paper and have very similar needs receive dramatically different levels of support. And so I wanted to highlight an example, and borrowing from my friends on Minority Arc, we have a little poster presentation. So take Plymouth and Medford, and I hope the camera angle is right here. We can capture all of this. These are very similar communities. Both have roughly 60,000 residents. Both have comparable property wealth. Both have slightly similar income per capita. Medford actually slightly higher than Plymouth. Yet Medford receives $15 million a year last year in UGGA, while Plymouth received less than $5 million. So very similar on paper, one getting significantly more than the other. And actually, Plymouth maintains 4 times as many road miles as Medford, and has significantly higher school operating costs as mandated by the state, and yet still receives less even when all these factors are quite similar. But this isn't the only example. There are actually many examples. So we can look at Mashpee and Medfield, very well represented town in terms of Medfield and Medford as well by my colleagues in the legislature. But both Mashpee and Medfield have about 14,000 residents. Medfield has actually significantly higher per capita incomes than the town of Mashpee. Even so, Medfield receives $1.8 million in UGGA, while Mashpee receives roughly $450,000, almost a 4 times increase, although they look very similar. And last, but certainly not least, let's take a look at the beautiful seaside communities of Newburyport, another incredibly well-represented community by my colleagues in this chamber, and in Bourne. Both beautiful communities, both have lovely beaches, both have around 20,000 residents, similar overall property wealth and property values, yet Newburyport, with higher per capita income than Bourne, receives $3.3 million in UGGA, while Bourne receives $1.8 million. So on paper, quite similar, and even Newburyport almost double the income per capita, but actually still receives almost double the aid. And this is not a problem that is exclusive certainly to my district, we hear about communities across the state that look very similar but have incredibly large disparities in funding. And that is because this system is fundamentally broken, and taken together, these comparisons highlight a consistent troubling pattern that holds across the state of Massachusetts, that state aid is not distributed in a way that reflects the current fiscal needs, service burden, or community capacity. Instead, historical allocations continue to shape outcomes in ways that leave many communities at a structural disadvantage. And that is why this amendment to reform UGGA is so necessary. The Commission will be tasked with creating a modern formula to better reflect economic realities, fiscal capacity, and service needs that our cities and towns are actually facing. It would also examine whether state aid can incentivize communities to take a look at making their communities more affordable for our residents, and our communities our residents are in a affordability crisis in the state of Massachusetts. School teachers, public safety professionals, essential town services should not be cut because of an unjust and outdated system of government aid. The people of our state deserve a fair formula that meets the needs of every community in the Commonwealth.